Our movie begins one day. Brent and his father are simply enjoying each other's company as they go home. But after taking his eyes off the road for a moment, Brent is unable to observe a bleeding guy suddenly materialize on the road. He promptly swerves into a tree in an attempt to avoid striking the man, instantly killing his father. 6 months later, Brent has deteriorated into a shadow of his former self, resorting to vices as an escape from the upsetting event. Additionally, he obtains narcotics from his pal Jamie, who also provides him with rubber protection so Brent and Holly may do it safely. When Jamie's crush, Mia, happens to stroll by at that very moment, he promptly approaches her to invite her to the school dance. In the meantime, Lola, a classmate, approaches Brent out of the blue to invite him to the dance. Brent, however, declines her invitation because he will undoubtedly attend the dance with Holly. After, Holly surprises Brent by telling him that she passed her driving test, so they begin making while driving. Holly observes wounds on Brent's body caused by his propensity for self-harm as she takes off his clothing. Even his razor necklace is visible to her. Holly continues to Brent without saying anything about it. They fail to see Lola observing them from the window as they are doing it. Later, Brent informs Holly that Lola had requested a dance from him. Carla, Brent's mother, is concerned about him getting into cars, especially ones with novice drivers, while she sits in his room. Brent lashes out, as a result, believing Carla is holding him responsible for his father's passing. As a result, Brent walks his dog to unwind and clear his head. Brent begins to climb the side of a tiny cliff and dangles himself over the edge as a coping mechanism for his feelings. Nonetheless, frightened as he almost slides, an unidentified attacker approaches from behind to chloroform Brent as he rests peacefully. Jamie, in the meantime, gets Mia from the dance and even goes so far as to get her flowers. Mia looks uninterested in anything, despite agreeing to go to the dance after accepting Jamie's offer. Brent will be late for the school dance, so Carla goes to check on him on the cliffside and calls out to him. Carla returns home to find Holly waiting at their door, also seeking for Brent, but he's nowhere to be seen. The two make many attempts to speak with Brent. They start to worry though when Brent's dog returns home covered in blood. Carla informs Paul, the father of Mia's police officer, that Brent is missing right away. Her father delivers the lifeless body of Brent to Lola. She pastes Brent's photo in her scrapbook and draws all over it incessantly in her room. Then, her father presents her with a dress, perhaps for the school dance. Even worse, in front of her father, she starts dressing up. Lola appears to be organizing her own celebration with Brent and her family, though, as soon as Brent wakes up bound to a chair at Lola's house and sees Lola, her father, and a lobotomized woman they call Bright Eyes, fear wells up in his belly. He immediately begins to struggle, but in vain. Then, Lola injects bleach into Brent's voice box to take away his capacity to talk. After that, they begin posing for photos with him as if they are at their own dance. At the real school dance, Mia prefers to indulge in drugs inside Jamie's car, making it difficult for Jamie to bring her into the school hall. While everything is going on, at Lola's own party, she starts yelling at Bright Eyes and makes her eat. She gives Brent some chicken while she attempts to do the same to Brent. He refuses to give in to her cunning tactics, though, as a result, Lola's father gets up and holds a hammer to him in a threat. Lola, therefore, succeeds in getting Brent to lap her finger. Lola refuses to release Brent as he attempts to flee by claiming to need to use the restroom. Instead, she grabs a glass of alcohol and attempts to have Brent urinate on it to assist him out of his predicament. As a result, Lola discovers Brent's in order to get him to pee on the glass, they threaten to hammer his crotch on the chair. Later, Brent kicks Lola away from him and frees himself from his restraints. Brent jumps out of the home as Lola's father follows him, almost free of his captors. Brent climbs onto a tree to escape out of the way of his captor's automobile as it pursues him. In order to make him fall off, Lola and her father began hurling stones at him. They immediately bind him to the chair once more. This time, however, they go over and above to prevent him from escaping by using knives to hammer his foot into the ground. Paul discovers Brent's music player on the cliff as he looks into his disappearance. Holly, though, has been by Carla's side the entire time to console her. They unexpectedly receive a visit from Paul, who shows them Brent's possessions. The celebration continues throughout the night in Lola's home. She starts displaying some images of her previous victims to Brent, this time, starting from when she was a little girl. Then she proceeds to show him a photo of Timmy, Mia's brother, who is also the enigmatic figure that Brent nearly drove over. Lola then uses a fork to carve a heart and her initials onto Brent's chest as a mark on his body. They stop enjoying hurting Brent when he is covered in blood from his recent wounds, all by adding salt to his injuries. Of fact, Brent can't even scream properly because of his injured vocal box. In the meantime, Holly visits Brent's room and discovers a tender love note he sent to her. On the other hand, despite the fact that Mia is already high, Jamie manages to convince her to accompany him to the school dance. With Brent serving as her king, Lola is crowned the night's queen of the dance by her father at her home. She compels Brent to blow a party whistle after she has already done so despite not having the strength. Jamie and Mia just have a beautiful slow dance at the school, but Mia has other ideas. Mia begins touching Jamie in the center of the dance floor in front of other pupils. A chaperone makes them depart to conduct their business elsewhere as a result. Lola, meantime, coerces Brent into dancing. His feet are still nailed to the ground with knives even though they are forcing him to stand. Lola's swaying of Brent from side to side causes him great discomfort. Just then, Lola admits that Brent is just another frog, not his prince. In order to dance with her, Lola begs her father. Brent takes advantage of the chance to drudge his razor necklace out of his pocket and onto his seat while his captors are conversing with one another. Lola begins to reveal that she believes her father is his actual prince, as if things couldn't get much worse. She then begins to kiss him while leaning in. They come to a complete halt as they see Brent recline backward on his seat, though Paul drives Holly home because it is already so late at night. Holly is still upset over her boyfriend's departure. On Brent's side, he begins to learn more about Lola's perverse behavior. He now observes Lola and her father revealing a secret trapdoor leading to their basement. He begins to hear the horrifying screams of Lola's prior victims as they go. As Lola orders them to sing for their dinner, a raw skunk, they all howl in unison, their voice boxes in tatters. After being kicked out of the gathering, Jamie and Mia begin dating in his car. The chaperone returns to reprimand them and remind them that they should go because they are still on school grounds. However, Lola is sticking to her tradition and wants to lobotomize Brent. She intends to do this even though her father often does it. She makes many unsuccessful attempts to drill through Brent's skull due to her inexperience, though Brent makes a valiant effort to escape his captivity, but the two kidnappers are unaware of his efforts. Lola's father gives her the hot water to melt Lola's brain immediately after the drilling, intending to add him to her basement collection of mindless victims. Lola, on the other hand, keeps making mistakes and even manages to dump boiling water over her father's arms. After finally understanding she can't do it, Lola requests her father to enlarge the gaping wound on his forehead. He accedes to Lola's demand and enlarges the hole he makes in Brent's head. Just then, Brent manages to free himself. Brent uses the drill to break free of his remaining restraints as they try to recover from the shock. He then takes the knives from his feet. Brent repeatedly stabs Lola's father while she is still reeling, and she has to leap on Brent's back to stop him. Brent is in a severe state, yet he still manages to wrestle Lola away from him. He instantly forces Lola's father down the cellar after that. As soon as her father is killed, Lola's mindless prisoners, who have all evolved into savages as a result of being imprisoned and treated like trash for so many years, begin to feast on his body. Brent freezes in place as he observes the cannibalism due to the horrifying scene. As a result, Lola is able to surprise Brent and force him down the cellar as well. Lola throws whatever she can find at Brent before shutting the trapdoor on him as she is filled with rage over the murder of her father. Brent uses a hammer that Lola had earlier tossed down to fight off cannibalistic savages when he finds himself alone and in the dark with them. After their own date night, Jamie brings Mia home. Brent kills all of the captors back in the basement and searches for a means to return to the home. Lola walks to Bright Eye's room to smother her with a pillow while her party is still in disarray, only to kill the woman who turns out to be her own mother. Holly, on the other hand, recalls Brent's remarks before they finally parted ways and understands that Lola asked Brent to the dance. She calls Paul right away to share her revelation as a result. Paul immediately makes a beeline for Lola's house, where he discovers the bloody carnage and enters by force. Brent keeps throwing objects to keep Paul informed of his whereabouts as he scans the kitchen, especially since he is unable to speak. Brent tries to warn Paul of an approaching Lola just as the trapdoor opens, but it's already too late. Paul's body falls to the basement as Lola slashes him with a butcher's knife in an instant. In a fit of rage, Brent snatches Paul's rifle and begins firing randomly at Lola, who does nothing more than back away from the trapdoor. Lola takes up Brent's razor blade and threatens to kill Carla the same way Brent killed her father after putting out his gunfire. Holly, in the meantime, is still unable to sleep a wink due to her deathly concern for Brent, especially in the absence of a report from Paul. She then sets off to look for him on her own. Lola maneuvers off the road as she drives through the streets in order to surprise her. She then hurls Holly's vehicle into the scrapbook to get her to stop. Holly notes that Lola is wearing Brent's razor necklace as Lola unlocks the passenger door. After a brief period of eye contact, Lola attempts to stab Holly, but Holly is able to protect herself and leave the vehicle. Holly kicks Lola to stop her from murdering her since Lola is still intent on doing so. Brent, meantime, escapes the cellar by climbing up to the house using the bodies as stepping stones. Without pausing, Brent drives away in Paul's police car, dodging Holly, who is eluding Lola on the highway. But Lola is accidentally run down by Brent. Holly rushes inside the police car after witnessing Brent in his present situation, feeling both relieved, horrified, and surprised, before turning to face Lola on the road, who is still ruthlessly trying to murder them both. They embrace each other warmly and feel protected. As a result, Brent just begins to retreat, eliminating Lola before she can cause any more damage. The night's horrors are eventually brought to an end as Brent drives back. Carla welcomes Holly and Brent home and is overcome with relief when she meets them. This is how our movie ends. Tell us in the comments how you felt about this movie recap. See you in the following movie recap.